Welcome everyone to Game 2 of Guardcon 2017. Game 2 sees us versing Jack, who's come over from Australia. Jack is playing Infernal Dwarves, again running Pyromancy. So just before we look at his list, another quick look at our Sylvan Elf list for this tournament. Main feature of this list is its speed into combat, and of course that I have no BSB. Had one unit of archers panic in the previous game, but outside of that, at this stage, not missing the BSB. So moving right into the Infernal Dwarves list. So Jack is running an Overlord. He's also got a standard BSB and a Prophet. As I said, he is running the Essence of Free Mind, can choose Alchemy and Pyromancy, but didn't even wait a hot minute before choosing Pyromancy in this matchup. And of course has the Ring of Fire like everyone does. Also got a Hobgoblin Chieftain to act as chaff, 2 units of Citadel Guard with flintlock axes. I outrange them, but those are still scary. 21 Immortals is a very tanky combat unit. 6 Kadim and 4 Turok Anointed, both difficult propositions in combat for me as well. So an exciting game ahead of us. I don't get to play Infernal Dwarves very often, and certainly not a push forward in your face version of this army. Typically Infernal Dwarf armies that I've played have tended to have more of a gunlighting feel to them, so looking forward to this match. Should be a good one. So game 2 sees us playing Counter Thrust with the secondary of Breakthrough. For Magic I got Scrying, Fate's Judgment, Stars Align, Look to the West and Unerring Strike. So pretty happy with my spell selection for this game. And moving on to the Infernal Dwarves Magic, Jack rolls up Pyroclastic Flow, Scorching Salvo, Flaming Swords and Enveloping Embers. So I'd say he's pretty happy with that selection of spells. Really has got the firepower to hurt me quite badly in the magic phase. Hopefully the dice are going to be kind to me. So moving on into deployment, Jack gave me the option to, well, not the option, he told me to drop first. So I started with my usual game plan of a unit of Kestrels in the middle, push right forward, giving me a bit of space for the rest of the drops. Can always vanguard them back again if I'm not happy with how things play out. Jack dropped fairly central. I followed my first drop of Kestrels with a second drop of Kestrels again, fairly central again, making sure he had to deploy far back. So at the end of deployment, our table looks like this. So over on the Sylvan Elf side of the table, not happy with my deployment. Only a few drops in, I realized I'd made a number of errors here. Firstly, I didn't really give myself a lot of room to vanguard my Kestrels backwards. My units are in the way, there's a pond in the way. Furthermore, putting my forest where I did and then my archers where they've gone, I haven't left myself clear shooting lanes, got units on top of one another in each other's way. Overall, this is going to be problematic. I've kind of made things difficult for myself. So Jack finishes deploying first and chooses to roll to take the first turn. So when we come to Vanguard, I choose to Vanguard both units of Kestrels backwards, just making it so that he can't do any charges on first turn. So Jack promptly goes ahead and wins the roll to take first turn. I think he had some crazy bonus to his dice roll, so it was pretty much a given. So you can see on the left hand side of the board he's moved his goblin character on the wolf and behind the hill. He's pushed forward with pretty much everything as I knew he would. effectively starting to corner me right from the beginning of the game. I'm going to take some fancy maneuvering to give myself a reasonable chance in this game at this point, I think. So moving on to the Infernal Dwarves magic phase, we start with an 8 dice to 4 magic phase. This is going to be rough. I'm really hoping that Jack will not continue to have such good dice rolls for his magic phase, because Pyro has the capacity just to obliterate me, as we mentioned in our last video. So Jack goes on ahead and unleashes his Ring of Fire and Pyroclastic Flow into one unit of Kestrels, killing 2 of those. Fortunately, most of my army is out of range at this stage. He's not able to shoot me, and Pyro could have been worse. So starting Sylvan Elves, turn 1. I really want to deal with those Turok Anointed. I figure any melee combat that's going to be prolonged, his guys are just too tough for me. I really need to be able to get combo charges off, particularly flanks, rears. So if I can clear those faster moving units off on the flanks, then hopefully I have an opportunity to combo charge his 3 infantry units in the center. The plan is hopefully I can unload a fair amount of magic missiles and shooting into the Turok, and then he'll either back off. Possibly if he charges, then I'll be able to kill off a few more in a stand and shoot. I've positioned to give myself the option for the archers to flee, and therefore hopefully he'd take a failed charge, and then I can charge in return as a counter charge with the Briar Maidens and the Kestrels and the Tree Father. Moving on to Sylvan Elves magic phase, and we roll up a 3 dice magic phase. Thankfully we're able to channel, which again, much like the game against the Highborn Elves, gives me the opportunity to 4 dice unerring strike. So we do, and we manage to inflict 3 wounds on to the Turok Anointed, and inflict 1 further wound from our shooting. So 4 wounds, turn 1, not too bad, but did hope for a little better. So moving right along to Infernal Dwarves turn 2. And as you can see, he continues to push forward. Essentially, he's starting to corner me. This is going to be quite problematic unless I can find some space. His units are too difficult for me to fight in a fair fight front on, and of course if I'm cornered, Scorching Salvo along with his other pyromancy spells are really going to wreak havoc. So moving along to magic, and Jack rolls up an 11-6 magic phase. This is going to be a massive pyro phase. Fortunately I am able to roll reasonably well, and he only gets through the Ring of Fire and Pyroclastic Flow, killing off 7 archers. Fortunately we pass our panic test, but that is certainly enough pyromancy for me in 1 turn. At this stage he's pretty much decimating 1 unit a turn through magic. Can't sustain those kind of losses for long. So moving along to Sylvan Elves turn 2. I decide I need to start trying to take a little bit of the fight towards him. So on the right hand flank we push forward with our Dryads, hoping that we're either able to sneak past, perhaps to score, or we force those Kadim to turn around and chase after me. He's got so many threats coming at me, the option there to break up his line a little bit would be quite helpful. My Tree Father also advances up but is out of arc of the Kadim. Again, looking to force some hard choices for Jack next turn. The Briar Maidens, the Matriarchs, the Kestrels all position themselves to attack the Turok Anointed. As said previously, really hoping to take those out as soon as possible so that I'm able to use my superior speed to set up some better opportunities later in the game. Magic phase turn 2, we roll up an 8-6 magic phase. Gotta say, where are my big one-sided magic phases? Why can't I get an 11-6? Through magic, we are able to inflict some more wounds on the Turok, and we also shoot at them. We inflict 5 more wounds on them, and they panic and run away with you nasty, nasty balls. That is a good start for this phase for me. We also managed to do 3 wounds to the Kadim as well, starting to work on that threat. So all in all, a very useful turn 2 range damage. Right, moving right along to Infernal Dwarves turn 3. Unfortunately, I was a little bit careless, and the Immortals are able to get a charge through the forest and into the flank of my Tree Father. Oops. Sadly, he doesn't even take many DTs, so that is going to be a waste of 480 points. The Kadim turn around to start chasing after the scoring Dryads. The Turok does not rally and continues to flee. Unfortunately, not really fleeing quite far enough that he's going to have an opportunity to rally possibly before the end of the game. The infantry continue to maneuver and position themselves. They're now in a situation where they can start shooting at my Tree Father. And the Wolf Rider, who's been hanging out hiding behind the hill, runs around onto the left flank and decides to chaff my Briar Maidens. Moving on to Magic, again we have a 9-6 Magic phase, another good one for the Infernal Dwarves. At this rate, Pyro is going to win this game single-handedly. So this phase, Jack manages to boost his Scorching Salvo and pretty much rip things apart. Combination of shooting and pyro in this round manages to kill a Kestrel, inflict 3 wounds on my Tree Father, shoot off 4 archers, destroy the solo Kestrel who was hanging out behind the hill, take 4 Dryads out of the skirmishing unit, and in combat he manages to kill the other Tree Father outright and reforms, ready to take on the rest of my army. So a very, very successful turn for Jack, clocking up quite a few points. So moving on to Sylvan Elves turn 3. At this point we really need to start picking up some points. Deliberated a little bit as to my course of action, but decided I really didn't want that lone Turok rallying, so the Lord charges out of the unit into the Goblin Wolf Rider, while the Kestrels also charge him just to make sure with combat res in case the Lord whiffs. The Briar Maidens chase after the fleeing Turok, and hopefully we will kill that off with our poison javelins. The Matriarch Bunker is able to pass their march test and run around the Immortals, while the Archers and the other Dryad unit also move out of line of sight. The Dryads on the flank turn around to face the inevitable death to the Kadim. Maybe I should have marched them further and forced the Kadim to run further away. But yeah, we have turned them around to give me a few good opportunities at least to get in behind them. Moving on to Magic, we roll up a 9-6 Magic phase with the Infernal Dwarves channeling. Got a little bit excited though, 9-6, chance to get perhaps 2, maybe even 3 spells off if things go my way. But we fail to cast Unerring Strike on 4 dice, which pretty much means we get nothing through this turn. Shooting in Magic therefore does very, very little. I think we chip off 1 or 2 wounds on the infantry, and that is about it. So moving on to combat, as I should have expected, my Wild Rider Lord absolutely slaughters the Goblin Hero on the Wolf, and is forced to do his overrun, where he doesn't really move very far at all. The Kestrels choose to reform rather than to overrun, so that they're in a position to start threatening the back lines. So yeah, in a position now where we've got a Tree Father, Kestrels, Briar Maidens, the Lord all in behind him. Hopefully we'll be able to start making the most of this very, very shortly. So, Infernal Dwarves turn 4. So the Kadim charge the Dryads on my right flank. The Immortals turn around to face the Matriarch bunker. At this stage, he's not really able to maneuver many of his units. Shooting wise, he just shuffles a little bit to be in position to shoot me once more. The lone Torok again fails to rally and continues marching towards the table edge in the corner. In Magic, he rolls up a 7-4 phase, so again, pretty useful Pyro Magic phase, and again, he unleashes, making the most of it, killing 7 archers and a Dryad. While in combat, the Kadim slaughter the Dryads, but not to the last man, and he decides to chase me and runs off the board. So we go on to Sylvan Elves turn 4. At this point, it's time to hopefully unleash some of our own combat potential. So the Kestrels, the Lord, and the Matriarch bunker all charge the unit that is closest by the wall. The Briar Maidens continue to move after the surviving Turok, again to throw their poison javelins at him, while the remaining Dryad unit pushes forward, looking to try and score, but also getting away from the Immortals. The few remaining archers just reform to pick a few shots off at the Immortals, while the Tree Father runs around out of arc of the shooting infantry in the hope that he can pick off a few wounds with shooting in the shooting phase. So moving along to Magic, and we roll up a 3-2 Magic phase. We don't even channel this time. Starting to feel like Magic is really not with me this tournament. Not sure if it was the best option, but we went for a Bubble Stars Align, which we managed to get off, affecting the Lord, the Matriarch bunker, and the Kestrels. So hopefully that will really inflict some serious damage onto those Infernal Dwarf infantry. In shooting, we pretty much do very little other than we finally managed to kill the last Turok with our poison javelins. And combat, well, the triple charge is very, very effective. We slaughter the infantry with the Lord and the Kestrel overrunning into the next infantry unit. So very, very happy with how that worked out. The Matriarch bunker is looking a little bit thin now. Just one Dryad left in that unit, but the Matriarchs still form a pretty potent combat threat on their own anyway. So, Infernal Dwarves turn 5. So the Kadim return to the fray and move along in front of my Dryad unit. The Immortals turn around and start chasing after the rest of my army that has managed to get in behind him. Moving on to Magic, and oh my god, a 10-5 Magic phase. What is going on? This is just crazy. Pyro is such a bad matchup for me, and just one strong phase after the other is really, really starting to hurt. So he unleashes all his pyromancy onto the remaining Dryad scoring unit and destroys it to the last Dryad. This is going to prove to be actually a big swing in the game, as I now am unable to score, which means he's pretty much going to win the objective. In combat, the Lord and the Kestrels work reasonably effectively, but unfortunately they are just not quite they're just not able to quite remove his steadfast. I believe I needed to inflict one more wound. So unfortunately he is able to hold, and he turns to face the Kestrels. Unfortunately the Lord was removed out of combat because the back row was destroyed, and with his frenzy that means he has to overrun. So unfortunately now I'm in a position with just one Kestrel left fighting against the last 5 Infernal Dwarf models. Hopefully we will be able to get the rest of those Matriarchs into that unit and at least finish them off. So moving into Sylvan Elves turn 5. just as we were about to finish up the Infernal Dwarves turn 5, we were told that we had to put our dice down. But of course, having played an odd number of turns each, we felt that that would probably be a bit unfair. Possibly I should have insisted we just retrace our steps back to the end of turn 4, which would have given me a tied objective. But to be fair, Jack deserved to have secured the objective, so we went on ahead and calculated that my remaining Kestrel, along with the Matriarch Bunker, would be able to charge in and finish off that remaining Infernal Dwarf infantry unit. We just played it out to see if his lone attack on my single Dryad that is left can kill it, which he was not able to. So we ended the game at that point. So adding up the points, Infernal Dwarves had killed 1919 points, Sylvan Elves 1798, which gave us a 10-10, but unfortunately the Immortals are fractionally inside my scoring zone, while that Dryad unit that was incinerated through the craziness that is Pyro caused me to lose the objective, so it turns it into a 13-7 loss. A well-deserved win for Jack. I really did deploy quite poorly. I think I made too many careless errors as well. Giving up a tree man to his Immortals was fairly poor play on my part. Should have spread out further in deployment, should have probably pushed forward more aggressively, and should have given myself better opportunities to use my archers more effectively. So overall, really too many mistakes. It was a good game, enjoyed playing Jack, he's always good fun to play against. Had hoped we'd be able to have a rematch when we finished the tournament on Sunday, as Jack was staying with me for the weekend, but unfortunately the wife pulled rank and gave him a game Sunday night instead. So looking forward to an opportunity to play Jack again sometime. Perhaps we'll be able to get an Anzac test in before ETC and have New Zealand play Australia. We'll see, but it was a great game, enjoyed playing Jack, and yeah, just a shame I made too many mistakes.